Okay, so moving along with 5.1, I'm going to show you two more versions of graphing by hand. We did standard form in the last video. We're going to do vertex and intercept form. Vertex form is very similar to standard form. You're going to start with your vertex. That's the first thing you need to find. I find it a little easier because this time you don't need to do a calculation to find your vertex. Well, f of x equals a, x minus h squared plus k. Your vertex is going to be hk. So there's no calculation to be done. You just need to be able to look at your equation and pick out your h and pick out your k. Now be careful. The vertex is h. It's not x minus h. It's just the h there. The x minus is a part of the equation. We're just looking for the value of the variable. So if I give you the equation, y equals 1/4 x minus 3 squared plus 4. You have to pick out your vertex. The h is just 3. It's not -3, which is the common mistake here. Okay? The x minus is part of the equation. Your vertex, +3, +4. The k is what it is. +4 is positive, -4 would be negative. Okay? But you have to be careful when you're picking out that h. Now, think about y equals -x plus 5 squared plus 3. That x plus 5. Think of another way you could write x plus 5. X minus a -5. So in this case, when it's x plus 5, -5, 3 is going to be our vertex. Okay, so kind of gotta think it's opposite. X minus 3 is going to be positive. X plus 5, it's going to be negative. Now going through the example, okay, here we have y equals -x plus 3 squared plus 6. Okay, so we're going to start the same as standard form. We're going to take that equation, we're going to find our vertex. There's our h, there's our k. So our vertex is -3, 6. So that's going to be our starting point. -3, 6. And there's the first point of our graph. We have the vertex labeled. I'm just going to make a small dashed line as our axis of symmetry. Remember, that's our mirror point. It's going to be symmetric. So whatever's on the left-hand side of that axis of symmetry, it's going to be the same thing on the right. Now, to get some more points, I'm going to make my XY table. Okay? Now, last time I told you want to pick points close to the vertex. I always am in the habit of going to my vertex and 2 points to the right. So since we're at -3, 6, -2, -1 are going right to that right-hand side. -2, -1. Now we just need to take the time, plug in, and simplify. Okay, taking the time to do these calculations, you should get -2 plus 3 is 1 squared, -1, so we get 5. -1 plus 3 is 2 squared is 4. -4 plus 2 plus 6 is 2. Okay, so take your time if you want to double check my work on the calculator, go right ahead. I'm not double check my work real quick in my head here, but I think I'm pretty good. So -2, 5. And -1, 2. And there's 2 more points. Remember, you need 3 points. So now I'm going to take the axis of symmetry. If it's 1 on the right, there's 1 on the left. 1, 2, 1, 2. And there's our point. It's a mirror image over that axis of symmetry. And there's our parabola. That would be our graph for the quadratic. So everything's the same except how we get our vertex. I think this is a little easier. It's a little less calculations. Still need to plug in and get those extra points. But between the axis of symmetry and just picking out the vertex from the equation, I think it's a little less work. Okay, so there's that work for vertex form. Now, intercept form is the only one, let me clean this off a little better, is the only one that I think's fairly different than standard and vertex form. Both standard and vertex form were very similar to each other, and you had to find the vertex, and then you found your other 4 points using the axis of symmetry. Now for intercept form, we're not going to start with the vertex. The P and the Q is going to be our x-intercepts. Okay, so that's going to be our 2 starting points. That's where it crosses the x-axis. Now, also notice intercept form doesn't have a square in it. This is expanded form. Okay, so this would be if it was factored. Okay? Not every quadratic equation can be written in intercept form. Okay? Now, x minus p, x minus q, remember, the intercepts are just p and just q. Just like when we looked at the vertex form for the vertex, we looked at just the variable h. Now we're looking at just p and just q for our x-intercepts. Okay, so here's our example. 0 equals negative x plus 2 and x minus 4. Okay, so we're going to start identifying our p and our q. P equals negative 2. Q equals positive 4. Now think about why it's negative 2 and positive 4. Okay? Our Q is just that 4 there. The x minus is part of the equation. And this second one, or this first set of parentheses, could be written as x minus negative 2. So that's why we have our P is negative 2. So they're the first 2 points I'm going to plot. The x-intercept, so it's right on the x-axis. Now, we had to think about what a parabola is. A parabola is going to be a symmetrical form. So we know if we have points that are in a line there, the midpoint is going to be our axis of symmetry. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's going to be 3 on each side. Our midpoint is going to be at 1. Okay? So kind of the same steps where you graph your vertex and draw your axis of symmetry. Now we have 2 points and we draw our axis of symmetry where the midpoint is. Okay? Because we know symmetric. There's one on the left, there's one on the right, and they're equal distance from the vertex for the axis of symmetry. Now, we know the vertex falls on that axis of symmetry. The question's where. Okay? So how we're going to find where? We know it's on this line, x equals 1. You're going to plug in and find where that y value is. So since we know x equals 1 for our vertex, we're going to plug that in. Negative 1 plus 2, 1 minus 4. Take your time doing this work. We get 3, negative 3, negative times 3 times negative 3 gives us positive 9. Our vertex is at 1, 9. So that's going to be the next point we're now going to plot. Okay, so now we have 3 points. We need to find 1 more point. Okay, so we need to pick, for our xy table, not as many points. We only need to pick 1 x value. Okay, but there's, you have to be careful with this one. We already used negative 2. We already used 4. We already used 1. You can pick any value other than those 3 points. I suggest picking a point close to it. I'm actually going to pick 2. It's right next to our vertex to the right. And the same work I'm plugging in. Negative 2 plus 2, 2 minus 4. Okay, and doing this same work, we get 4. 2 minus 4 is 2. Sorry, negative 2. Negative 4 times negative 2 should give us positive 8. And there's our 4th point, 2, 8. And using that axis of symmetry just like we did before. 1 here, 1 here. And there's our nice, beautiful graph. Okay, so that was an example of vertex form, an example of intercept form. Steps are slightly different, okay, but the concept's the same. We're finding 5 points to draw our parabola.